Hi everyone, this is Andy Kirkpatrick, video 4 of my series for support staff training modules. This one is titled Current Hot Topics. These are the buzzwords in education which are being thrown around, and you probably heard a bunch of it. The first one is trauma. We want to be a trauma sensitive school. Okay, what is trauma? Bad things happen and it really affects you. I mean, these kids are bullied. I was bullied. That can be very traumatic. Uh, Domestic violence, whether on them or their parent. Sexual abuse. Okay, all this is very traumatic. I understand that, and as a system, we do need to be very aware of this. As support staff, if there's something that could be labeled abuse, we are mandated reporters in New York State, so we would report to the teacher or principal and go from there. Um, to be honest, I don't, as a study hall monitor, I don't deal with trauma that I know of. I mean, I'm guessing these kids, some of them have trauma, some of them have crappy home lives. I understand that, but it's not something I've really dealt with too much. Uh, I know my district has hired a few social workers, so now we have counselors, psychologists, and social workers that work for the district, and we have people from outside agencies working within the district. So things have gotten better. The only thing I would say about trauma is I understand that these kids are traumatized, but a lot of adults are too. So trauma should not be used as a crutch or an excuse to act like an idiot, basically. I hope these kids get the help they need, but they're also human beings first and foremost, and they do have responsibilities too. So, on the one hand, I want these kids to get the help they need, and hopefully they do well, but I also think that we shouldn't use trauma as a crutch. The second thing is disability. Um, when I graduated school in 2000, I started kindergarten in 1987. We didn't have 1211 that I knew of, or 811, or we had resource room in the high school. I don't remember if we had it for grade school or not. We didn't have an ABA room. One-on-one aids were not a thing that I knew of. At the school I went to, there was one room that BOCES ran where all the really bad kids went. Um, but now there are a plethora of disabilities. There's intellectual disabilities, learning disabilities, physical disabilities, and as a support staff member, if you're a TA or monitor or one on one, especially a one on one, you need to be aware of this with your kids. Um, you need to know what their IEPs say, you need to know how to handle these disabilities, and if you have any questions, go to your teacher or administrator. Um, Thing with disabilities again, we're all human beings first, whatever second. Uh, there are a lot of kids with disabilities who would do great things, and they may start in 1211, but they go mainstream, eventually. And it's awesome to see these kids going to levels where people think they might not have gone to. So this is awesome. I say we keep up the great work in special ed. The problem I have with disabilities is we seem to be having so many more kids with disabilities, more autism, so we have more ABA rooms, um, more kids with learning disabilities, so more 1211 rooms, more kids with behavioral issues, so more 811 rooms. What's driving this? Uh, I don't know. Is something in the water? Are we just better at diagnosing this stuff? something is driving this, and we need to get a handle on it, because you can't fill a building with special ed rooms. They don't have the space and they don't have the staff, trust me. Um, so we need to get a handle on disabilities, figure out what they really are, what's really going on, what can we do, but we also need to focus on the education. Disabled or not, they're still there to learn, so we need to make sure that these kids are not using disability as a crutch. The next topic is TCIS, which is basically a de-escalation strategy. It started in residential homes, and now it's in education, support staff, and special ed teachers, and regular ed teachers too. A lot of people are being trained on de-escalation strategies and how to properly restrain students if need be, which is a last resort, but if need be, there's a proper way to do it. Um, there's a time and a place for TCIS. I think it's great, but I also disagree with some of it. If there's a student acting up in your class and they're throwing stuff around, acting like a real goofball, the thing is now to get the rest of the kids out of there, move them to another location, and let the kid throw their fit until they calm down. I'm kind of against this because it ruins the learning of a bunch of other students while one kid is acting up. I can kind of get where they're coming from, but on the other hand, I think the student needs to be removed, go to a calming room, and have them calm down there. Yes, you're taking away the audience if you move the other kids out of the room, but still more kids are suffering because of the doings of one kid. So, I'll let you decide which side you're on there. The next topic would be socioeconomic issues. Again, the big one where I am is poverty. I don't make a ton of money as a TA. Okay, I have my gross pay, but that's not my take-home pay. My take-home pay is a lot less than my gross pay, let me tell you. So, I'm poor, okay? If my wife and I split up, I still would make too much money for public assistance, food stamps. So, I'm out of luck there. And my wife and I eat together. We're happily together, but we still don't qualify for assistance. And we're both support staff. So we have money issues where, we're not poor, we're not, in any dire straits or anything, but we're not exactly well off either. And a lot of these kids come from poor families. I did. Okay, I was raised by a single mother. And I get that these kids are poor, but at the same time, what are we doing for the parents? Are we telling them, we can't make you look for a job, but, maybe you might want to do something to increase your standard of living? How many parents are living off the system and not wanting to work? How many parents don't actually care about their kids, unfortunately? If you don't want kids, don't have them. And if you do have them and don't want them, give them up for adoption. There are people out there who would gladly take them. Okay? So I understand that poverty is an issue, but I don't want to hear it being used as an excuse, because a lot of things can lift people out of poverty. Better wages, livable wages would be a great thing. Better education for staff, better opportunities for upward mobility. There's a lot you could do for poverty if you really wanted to. It's interesting that people cry poverty, but they and their kids have a new cell phone that costs hundreds of dollars. People are still buying cigarettes or marijuana if it's legal, or even if it's not. People driving Hummers and other gas guzzling vehicles during a gas crisis. Okay, so there's so much that could be done about poverty. Um, I just don't think that it should be the issue that it is, but that's just me. Another issue is discrimination. Yeah, I've heard the N word thrown around by my students, and it's really irritating. So there is racism, there is homophobia, there's slurs out there for the LGBTQ community. Um, so it's just bigotry in general. What do we do about that? Um, would race training or sensitivity training or whatever for the students be a good idea? Um, this past, what was it, October, we had LGBTQ training for the support staff. Maybe it's time our kids get it too. Uh, just throwing it out there. The last one would be DDI and IEP. DDI is data driven instruction. Basically, the teachers get all this data, all the data points are crunched and numbers are crunched, and they get these results. And the data, whatever it is, drives the instruction. So this is more quantitative, numbers based research than qualitative, non numbers based research. Um, I don't know too much about it because I don't have to deal with it, but it is something that's out there. And IEP, Individualized Education Plan. If you're a one-on-one aide, you're going to want to know your kid's IEP. Do they have testing accommodations? Do they have other things? As an aide, you should know this. You also have BIPs, Behavioral Intervention Plans, for students who have behavioral issues. So there are a lot of new things around. So if you have any questions about that stuff, just talk to your teacher, talk to your administrator. So those are some of the current hot topics in education, as you should probably be aware of. Trust me, there are many more. And if you have any questions, feel free to research these issues on your own and get as much information as you can. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.